Welcome, everyone, to the Entertainment Buffet podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Prosek.
And I'm your other host, Jessica Kwazz.
And we're closing in. We only got a couple more top 10s of the 10s, Jess.
Yeah, almost done. We're rounding out talking about our top 10 favorites of the decade. And here we are talking about 10 of our favorite actresses' performance of the last decade.
Yes, which we were debating whether we should do 10. We could have very easily done 10 TV actresses. We could have done 10 supporting, 10 leading, but we would have done a top 10 series forever, guys.
Yeah.
Like we would have just changed into a top 10 show, which I'm sure that already is a podcast or a web show out there. So we decided to keep it simple. So how this is going to go is we are going to talk about 5 TV actresses and 5 film actresses that we think best performances sometime between 2010 and 2019.
Yeah, it's easier to just break it up into 2 different lists rather than talking about 10 of our favorite TV actresses, 10 of our movie actresses. We'd all be here for a very long time. So we're just going to break it up that way and do our favorite 5 and 5. And again, these lists are our favorites. It's really hard to choose what is like objectively the best. So this is just like something that's a little more personal to each one of us. And we're not saying like definitively there was no one better than these 5. We're just saying these are like the 5 that we prefer.
Definitely. Yeah, these are favorites, and we try to find performances or picks when we do these lists that aren't just ones that are nominated for all the awards, typical films that you find at the Golden Globes or the Oscars or the Emmys, which who knows if we'll even have one of those award shows this year. But yeah, so these are just favorites. Hopefully these are things that you've seen. And the way I always look at it is whenever I come across ones that like Jess comes up with the list, I'm like, awesome, these are recommendations for movies or shows that I need to see.
Yeah, exactly. And same with you. Like whatever you have said that I haven't seen, it's like, all right, well, I got to add that to the list. And now that I'm in quarantine, I have a lot of time to watch movies or TV. So it works out.
Definitely. And this is what we're doing for this episode of the Entertainment Buffet podcast. Some of you may be finding us on, we're making the Entertainment Buffet podcast from now on available on Entertainment Buffet's YouTube. So you can catch us there, catch us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the places you can find podcasts. But please follow us on those social medias and subscribe, all those types of things. But yeah, we wanted to make it available just as many places as possible. So that's why we decided to start putting them on YouTube. And that's kind of where Jess and I started.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this, like on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, if you go over to YouTube, you might be able to see our faces. We are trying to record a Zoom. We'll see how this goes, but you can kind of see what we look like when we're recording. For me, it's no makeup and sloppy hair in my quarantine, so you can get the raw action.
Yeah, we're definitely being safe. We are literally states apart.
Yep, the biggest social distance we can do right now.
Yes, the only bigger is if we put an ocean between us.
Yep. So we're staying at home. We're isolating. Speaking of, we've been probably. I mean, I know I have. Have you been taking in a lot of content lately? What have you been watching? Look at that segue.
Oh, that was a killer segue. I usually get really pumped with my segues, but you just blew me out of the water, and now I'm like almost not even prepared. Yeah, I've been definitely trying to take in content during these times. I'm trying not to go crazy with the binging, which I totally understand during these times if that's your thing. I'm sure I'm gonna dive deep into something. I've been trying to just kind of slow. As far as like shows, I binged both season 1 and 2 on Netflix of The End of the Fucking World. Have you seen that show?
I haven't. I've heard a lot about it though. So I've heard like people really like it.
Yeah, what I'll recommend about that show, why it's very easy to binge, is both seasons, they're only 8 episodes, and the episodes are only about 20 minutes. Like, obviously it's Netflix, no commercials. So if you really think about it, 20 minutes, 8 episodes, there's only 16 total. It was very easy to get through in like, I think it was like a week and a half, knock out like an episode or so here and there. And also when I would sit and watch like a few in a row, I didn't feel like, oh, I've been sitting in the same spot forever. Like you watch 3 episodes, it's only an hour. It's not the end of the world. So
But
that
it
was
is the end of the fucking world, Brandon.
fuck. The camera's on and Jess is on.
Performing.
She's like, before I'm just kind of chilling, but now that the camera's on, 110%. No, I love it. So yeah, what have I been watching? I can't remember if I talked about this last time, but I have now seen all of the Tremors movies. I watched
Wow, you've made moves.
yes, which I had already seen 4 of them because there was a big gap between when 5 and 6 happened, but 5 and 6 were the most recent ones that came out in 2015 and 2018, I believe, which is Tremors 5 Bloodlines and Tremors 6 A Cold Day in Hell. Yeah, there's some good parts, and there's definitely some parts that's like, yeah, there's a reason why these are like video on demand, direct to video movies. I could do an entire video essay on why Tremors is utterly fantastic, but the sequels are about is what you probably would expect seeing the first Tremors. That's what I'll say for those. I saw Monty Python's The Life of Brian for the first time.
Okay.
Yeah, I grew up, I loved Holy Grail. I just never got around to see Life of Brian. That was certainly interesting. Totally understand why at the time, with all the religious and like kind of political humor in there, why that was probably divisive. And oh man, I'm looking at this list and I'm realizing I did watch more than I thought. I watched Fried Green Tomatoes for the first
That's
time.
interesting. Really? How did you end up
Yes.
watching that?
My partner recommended it. She loved the
Okay.
movie. And here's what I'll say. And this was no fault by her or the movie, but she was like, oh, I love that movie. And I guess her tone, I thought it was going to be like a fun movie because the picture on Amazon Prime is like Kathy Bates, this older actress, and then like Mary Louise Parker and like the cast, and they're all kind of like smiling. And I'm like, is this kind of like a female, like not comedy, but like, you know, kind of dramedy, you know, things are fun. Nope, it is
Yeah,
pretty
no.
heavy with the racism and the sexism, and you know, it takes place when they're not long after, you know, slaves and whatnot. It was not what I was expecting. Good, but don't go into it thinking it's just going to be a fun little romp, because it's not. Bad movie that I saw for the first time, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Oh, that movie.
I hadn't seen
Yeah.
that one. I kind of refused for the longest time because I heard it was so bad, and I loved Last Crusade, and I found it so funny that Steven Spielberg even pushed to name it Last Crusade because he's like, I don't want to keep doing these. Yet he got roped into doing it, and like Harrison Ford and George Lucas kind of like no, it's gonna be good, and then we saw was not overuse of CGI, the lighting, the cinematography. Woof! Like I now totally see why it gets so much shit. Like I never doubted anyone, but I was like, come on, guys. Like maybe if we just look at it in a different light. No, you can't. It's just when you have like some of the best action movies of all time with Raiders of the Lost Ark and Last Crusade and then Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, it does it would I couldn't believe that Harrison agreed to it. I couldn't believe that Spielberg did it because the quality dramatically different and not for I don't want to say I wish I didn't see it. Like I'm glad I saw it because I've always wondered, but also I partly wish I didn't see it.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I saw it like when I first came out when I was a kid, like in
Woof.
theaters. Yeah. And like I remember even as a child being like, this is not good. Like, just already knowing, even though there was like flashy action and like fun things and
Well, the
aliens.
action became like a goddamn cartoon. Like, it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like fun, awesome punch, awesome stunt work. It just was sloppy. And it just felt like such a waste of all the talents of the people involved. I felt bad for like Shia LaBeouf
Yeah, I think
because
that's like really good casting actually.
I
Shia LaBeouf
think
as his son. Like that's a
he
good
gets
job.
so much shit for that movie, but like I don't think that was his fault at all. It was the script.
Yeah, no, not him.
Yeah, and I don't know. It just the ending is just a whirlwind of like, what is even happening? What the fuck? Like like sure, like I had heard that it's kind of like Aliens is like the twist. I'm not going to say spoilers because like fuck it, that movie came out in '08, guys. We were too busy watching a good movie like The Dark Knight and Iron Man. Uh, um, woof, it is bad, and um, all the Indiana Jones movies are on Netflix. Just watch the good ones. Leave that one behind. Uh, and then finally, just last night, the time we're recording this, I watched for the first time since I was probably like in grade school, Wild Wild West.
Wow, how was that?
It was interesting because I just it because of I know that I'm pretty sure Will Smith was someone that was up for Neo in Matrix, which also came
Right.
out in 1999. Want to know how things came together for him to make that opposed to Matrix, which like,
Money.
well, yeah,
Mm.
but it just woof, it was bad. I almost didn't recognize that was Kenneth Branagh in the villain role. I thought that was a completely different actor who just like, huh, this is probably the only thing he did. Like, nope, he went on to direct Thor. uh, so yeah, I've been dabbling in some bad movies, some good movies. But last thing I'll say, I rewatched. This is now the third time I've seen it. Knives Out.
Oh wow. I haven't
I
rewatched it since I first saw it, but I really want to.
Okay, so here's what I'll say. I saw it twice in theaters, and technically, as of right now, that's the last movie I saw in theaters back in January, before such. And every time I watch it, I notice different things. And now that I've seen it a third time, like I really was paying attention to the pacing and like how structured and like how Ryan Johnson is able to take the mystery, kind of like who done it genre. And I don't want to say like some people doubt it by saying he flipped it on its head, but I think he paces it so well because it's around 30 minutes in where I won't spoil this one because this movie's still new. He reveals a pretty big thing and then it becomes a different movie. And
Mm-hmm.
then
Yeah.
a big character who like in the advertisement I thought was going to be one of the leads, he doesn't show up until an hour into the 2-hour movie. And then you realize that this other character who's barely in the advertising at all, she's the lead.
Right.
And I just appreciated that from Ryan Johnson, who like did the same thing with Looper. Like his marketing, whoever does the marketing for his movies, they don't reveal everything. So I just really enjoyed Knives Out. It's probably one of my favorites that came out in 2019. But yeah, so woof, I guess I did watch more than I thought. At first I was like, nah, not that much. And I was like, oh yeah, put some away. But Jess, what have you been watching?
I've haven't been watching as much as you would think because I'm trying not to fall in that habit of just binging my whole life away because it's very easy for me to do that. So I'm trying to practice some self-control. But I've been watching a lot of things also. So for TV, I just finished watching Lego Masters, the first season. It premiered 2 months ago. It's awesome. I really enjoyed it. Like it's one of the best reality competition shows I've watched in a very long time. It's basically like like a Project Runway Top Chef kind of situation, but with building Legos. It's so cool. And honestly, like there is a lot of drama even on that show. So it has like everything. It has like cool, fun creativity, really awesome like characters, like in terms of like people to root for on reality TV. Will Arnett is the host, and he's really fun. So yeah, I really enjoyed Lego Masters. It's all on Hulu right now. I think the finale just premiered last week or 2 weeks ago, so it's still a very new show. But it's great. I really want a season 2. I hope we get it.
I'm
It's
sure
just one
that
of
sounds like that would definitely be a hit. I want to watch that now. But also, when is the spinoff happening called Connects Crafters?
like the connects, those little things.
Oh, like, did you ever play with Connects?
Yeah,
I
I
was a
forgot
Connects
all about
kid.
them.
Everyone was into Legos, and I was into Connects.
Really? So you weren't into Legos. You were
I
more
mean,
connects.
it was okay, but I don't know why I gravitated more towards Connects. Maybe there's a little
Interesting.
more versatility in the things. It wasn't just blocks, but I digress.
Okay. Okay.
Alliteration.
Learn something new. I really enjoyed it, and I wasn't like super into Legos as a kid. I played with them, of course, but like I wasn't like some people. But yeah, so you can still really enjoy Lego Masters even if you're not like a Lego fan yourself. So that's just like a nice little like refreshing bright show to watch right. So another show that I've been watching is very different from Lego Masters, and that is Waco. It's a mini series that's now on Netflix, and it is about the standoff in Waco, Texas in the early 90s between the ATF and the Branch Davidian cult. And it's really intense. It's a very intense moment in American history. And the show is really well done. It shows both sides of the situation and sort of like what happened to lead up to such a terrible event. The reason why I started watching it is because Michael Shannon is a star, and I love Michael Shannon and I love cults, so it's kind of perfect for me. But yeah, it's really interesting. It's really incredible. The cast is really great. So Waco, amazing. And then in terms of movies, I have been all across the board. I've been watching the most random array of movies, some of which are Frozen 2. Finally got around to seeing that. Um, it's fine. It's fine. It's a little
You say that for a
convoluted.
lot of films. It's really fun. It's fine.
Yeah, it's not like the worst movie I've ever seen, but it's also not nearly as amazing as Frozen 1. The plot is wild. Like, I can't even really fully describe it because it's so all over the place. There's something about a magical forest and magical elements and ice and fire, and I don't know, there's a lot happening in Frozen 2. And I gotta say, the soundtrack, not nearly as good as Frozen 1, which slaps. Um, I've also watched the original Dracula from 1931, and I really, really, really enjoyed it. A lot more than I thought. I kind of just watched it for funsies because I like watching old movies. And it was really cool to see where horror films originated with some of their tropes and some of their devices, all the way back in 1931. And there were actually some like really chilling moments of the movie. I didn't expect to be scared or like affected or weirded out by it because it's so old, but it actually like really got to me. Um, and another movie I rewatched because I'm trying to either watch movies I've never seen or rewatch movies I haven't seen in forever during my quarantine. So a movie I rewatched was Cabin in the Woods, which I haven't seen since it first came out. And honestly, I think Cabin in the Woods is like a perfect movie. I didn't expect to enjoy it as much rewatching it, but I really, really enjoyed it. And there were just a lot of like moments and fun, weird devices and things that they were playing with that like I completely forgot about. It goes in a direction that you never were really expecting. It's fun, it's gory, it's scary, it's weird. I really enjoyed it. So I would say if you haven't seen Cabin in the Woods and you're a horror fan, you absolutely should, or rewatch it because I really enjoyed rewatching it.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't think I've watched that since like college days because that came out like what, like 2012, 2013.
I think 2011. Yeah, it was like early 2010s, and I remember that at the time of seeing it, I really did enjoy it, and I really liked it, and I thought it was like weird and unique and different. So I rewatched it just because it was like on Hulu, and I was like, why not? I have nothing else going on. And yeah, I just like rewatching it. I was like, I don't know why like this movie was kind of forgotten to me because it's great. It's amazing. And Chris Hemsworth is really fun too. It's like really interesting to watch him because this was before Thor, and like this is I apparently like the rumor is this movie is like kind of what got him Thor, because he was playing this like macho character, and this is like what they like looked at when they were seeing it. And yeah, it's just really fun. It's just really good, and he's really good in it. So yeah, I really enjoyed rewatching that. And then not a movie or TV show, but an audiobook I just recently finished is Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow. I flew through it within like 3 days. I just found myself like I couldn't stop listening to it. It's a fantastic book, and it's all about Ronan Farrow and his time reporting on the Weinstein scandal and everything he did and what he went through, and it is insane. It's really kind of scary and crazy, and it feels almost like a political thriller at times, even though it's all very real. um, and just the measures that were taken by so many people to try to stop this from coming forward because they were all manipulated or because money was involved. If you're in the entertainment industry at all, or if you're interested in it, I definitely suggest listening to it because it kind of shows like the dark underbelly of the industry in a way that like really is important to pay attention to. So yeah, Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow. It's probably one of my favorite things I've like paid any attention to in this quarantine. And the audiobook is great because he's actually the one reading it, and it's just I like audiobooks when like the person who wrote it is the one reading it, because then you're like really just hearing them tell you a story. So I would suggest the audiobook version.
Definitely, definitely. Well, I'll have to see if I can check that out. I'm sure there's going to be podcasts about that too.
Yeah, if there like aren't already.
Yeah. So, Jess, we're continuing on our journey of top 10s of the 10s, and I feel like we should go ahead and jump right in. We're going to be talking about actress performances that took place between 2010 and 2019. We have 5 that were in TV and 5 that were in film.
So this was, as I'm sure you can attest, very hard because there were so many this decade. Um, but I like really thought about it, and the ones like the performances that like really stuck with me or impacted me or made me think about things, like these are the top 5. So number 5 is Regina King as Angela Abar, or Sister Night, in Watchmen. That is a very new performance. It just came out in 2019, but from beginning to end, her performance was just stellar. And like the show's incredible, but I really do think her performance is like what elevated it even further, especially on the finale. When we get to the end, like she just punches it forward even further. And she literally has to act every range of emotion on that show. So number 5, Regina King, Angela Abar / Sister Night in Watchmen. If you haven't watched Watchmen yet, please do. It's incredible. My number 4 is Olivia Colman in 2 roles, which is kind of cheating, but kind of not. So number 4 is Olivia Colman as Ellie Miller in Broadchurch, which was in 2013 to 2017, and then again as Queen Elizabeth in The Crown. Both performances are very, very different, very incredible. And I gotta say, I didn't even really know who Olivia Colman was until The Favorite came out, and she won the Oscar for it. But I revisited I'd never seen Broadchurch before. I heard it's amazing. It's a great true crime drama. So this past year, 2019, I finally watched it, and Yeah, it's an incredible show. And then past year, she also came out with The Crown, which is a very different performance because it is more restrained while dealing with the emotions and stress of being the figurehead of a country. And in Broadchurch, she's a little more like a modern day, more casual woman who's very intelligent. And she has a huge transformation in the series. Um, and yeah, just the way she delivers both characters is so believable, even when she's playing Queen Elizabeth, who is like a person we already know. She just goes into it and you feel like she's the queen. And her affectation in The Crown too is very different from her normal way of speaking, which is very interesting. She got the voice down, she got the mannerisms down, like she is the queen. And in Broadchurch, she kind of was able to like make the character more of her own. So it's just interesting to see like those two very different type of performances being in stellar in the same decade by the same actress. Number 3 is Catherine O'Hara as Moira Rose in Schitt's Creek. One of the most hilarious performances of the decade and probably of her career, even though her career is dead. David. And that's another thing, like her weird affectation, like her weird, like sort of accent that you don't know what she's like, where is she from? Like, what is she doing? Like that alone is brilliant. So yeah, Catherine O'Hara, she's obviously like a comedic legend, but to me, Moira Rose is like the best performance she's ever given. Number 2, I have Thandie Newton as Maeve Millay in Westworld. If you're still watching Westworld like I am, then you know it's definitely gone off the rails a little bit. Is a little wild right now.
I've not seen the new season yet.
Have you seen season 2?
Yeah, I was caught up. It's just since the new season started, I have not picked it back up.
So, just a sidebar, like I think season 1 is incredible, beginning to end, like brilliant. I think it probably maybe should have been a mini series because I think now they like are almost getting so like cerebral and so big with their concepts that it's starting to like not make any sense. Like, you know, it's like I like season 1 had a lot of like really like big picture concepts that they were like putting into this like park, and now like that they've changed the trajectory of the whole show, it's still these like big concepts, but it's all like, okay, are you trying to like pretend like you're smart? Like it's just, and I don't know, it's just gotten crazy. But
yeah, I think they've gotten way too, like I haven't seen season 3, but I remember with season 4 and like they've just gotten too wrapped up in trying to twist us and like the fake outs of who's a robot, who's not a robot, who's who. It's just like, I remember, like you said, the first season I was interested in the show because it seemed like a different concept and like an incredible cast, like all-star cast, and it just, the writing, I don't know, maybe it's just personally I feel like they're trying to outsmart us too much, and sometimes when you're too focused on trying to outsmart someone, you make something dumber.
Exactly. It's almost like we're trying to fool you. You can't see what's coming. But like then the reveals end up being like, well, I didn't see that coming because that doesn't make any sense. Whereas like season 1, the reveals were like, oh my good, like the reveals in season 1 like hit you. And I feel like season 2 was like, everyone's a robot now. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. But I
Thandie
will
Newton.
say Thandie Newton, she has been consistently amazing in every single moment she's on that show. And that's like, you can't even doubt that. No matter what the show's doing, she is there, she's performing, she's giving it her all. She's just, and I like, it's just, I feel like she's playing this really interesting character of a very strong woman who is going through an incredibly heartbreaking situation. And so she's really good at balancing playing tough and vulnerable, like at the same time, which is really interesting. And she's almost this like hero that's otherworldly and almost like larger than life, but you still feel that she's very complex with her emotions. So it's interesting. Like she's a very interesting hero because she is strong and tough and can like take care of herself and do what needs to be done, but at the same time you see like what she's going through is really affecting her. I also just feel like looking back, like she is one of those actresses that has been in like everything, but you didn't really like pay attention to her. You just like were like, oh yeah, that woman, she's in this again, yeah. And this is where she's finally like gotten the attention she deserves. So I don't know, I think she's wonderful, and I think that no matter where the show goes or what it's done, like her performance is just beautiful and incredible. And then number one, kind of like an obvious choice for me, is Elisabeth Moss as June Osborne in The Handmaid's Tale, just because it's the most intense role for a woman on TV this past decade. Like there's just nothing else that really compares. Um, and the show is incredible. It's really great, but I think like her specific performance is what makes the show even more impactful. I think that the show would have been very different had it been like anyone else, and she's just the only one that can do that role, I feel like. So that's what makes it the best, or at least my favorite.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's I think there's a good mix of some of those I've seen, some of those who may be on my list, and also just some that I haven't seen that show, but I've heard nothing but good things. Um, so yeah, my top 5 TV actress performances. Number 5 is Rachel Bloom in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. I haven't even
Yes.
seen like this full show. I maybe cumulatively have seen like only a season or two, but like she just nails it. She is musically talented. She's obviously one of the showrunners and like the writers on the show, the creators. She's absolutely hilarious. Um, I don't know why she's not like a big movie star yet. Maybe it's because she was working on this. Maybe because I know she is like having starting a family soon. So like I don't know why she's not like bigger, because I think she's incredible. I think she has everything. Um, so Rachel Bloom, awesome. The next is someone I just recently binged right before the quarantine. I binged the show Fleabag. It's Phoebe Waller-Bridge from Fleabag as Fleabag. Yeah, she's incredible. Another role where she's the writer, the creator of the show. There's only 2 seasons, but I think she plays such a sympathetic character where it's so emotional, but then other minutes she's cracking me the fuck up, and she blends those 2 things so well together. And I was kind of like upset that there's not going to be more seasons, but also I am excited because I know that means she's going to be starring in other things and also creating other things. So maybe it's not the end of the world that Fleabag's done, because that just means she won't be pigeonholed into just doing this one performance. Like she did a great job for those 2 seasons, and now let's see what she does next, because I wouldn't doubt
Yeah.
if in the 2020s she's on our lists again.
Well, the next major thing she's doing is she wrote the Bond movie,
Yeah, she was one of the
which
writers
is
of the newest
wow.
Bond movie, so that should be interesting where that goes. Yeah, I'm really curious both her writing career and also for acting career, because I think she's hilarious and an incredible performer on top of her writing. My number 3 was Catherine O'Hara as Moira Rose in Schitt's Creek.
Yes, same placement.
Yeah, um I'm almost done with season 3 of Schitt's Creek, so like I still have a bit to go. But there's no denying that she is just so outrageously funny in that show. You completely forget that that's the mom from like Home Alone. She's just like you said, she immerses herself in this like weird dialect that it's like, is she trying to be British? Is she trying to just be fancy? Is like, what is she like? Like, and it's not just her voice and dialect, but it's the dialogue that she's given and the way that she just, I wish I wrote down some quotes, but the way I love, she used one of my favorite words. It was an old vocab word when I was in school. At one point in the one episode, she's like, subterfuge. And like by saying it in that voice, I'm like, that shouldn't be so goddamn funny. And it like kind of makes you forget that she's, I don't want to say she's an awful person, but like most of the show, like they're pretty just like terrible, like, oh, I'm so rich and everyone's below me kind of thing. But like she's so funny and entertaining that I just kind of forget that. She rocks all those ridiculous wigs and
Yes, the wig
obnoxious
game.
outfits. And just David, fold the
Yeah.
cheese, David.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, but just fold the cheese.
Yeah.
You don't know what it means. I do, but I'm doing something. You know, like it's God. It's
She's so brilliant in it. Like just truly everything. Like, and the way that she plays off the characters is great, but then the way she can just carry it all on her own too, it's just like perfect. Oh, so
yeah,
good.
incredible. So another comedic juggernaut in the TV game, Julia Louis-Dreyfus in Veep.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So I forget where I left off in Veep. I think I was on about season 4 or 5. But like, do I need to say more? She's just like rocked this decade in that role. I remember when I was younger, everyone thought that there was a Seinfeld curse where like the other actors wouldn't get much work because they were typecast. Not Julia Louis-Dreyfus. She's too talented. Um, I think she plays off all the actors really well. She handles the rapid fire dialogue. She sometimes feels relatable, but also it's just like, God, she's awful too.
Yeah.
And I love too, just in general in real life, where she's just like, yeah, no, this isn't like a spoof. Like this is how Washington is. Yeah, I am so excited to jump back into that show at some point. I think that was part of the reason why I slowed down, because I binged a ton of it right in a row, and then I knew it was going to end eventually. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to pause, come back to it, so that when I can like binge more again. But yeah, so that's my number 2 for TV performances. And then my number 1 was an actress that we literally saw her grow up from like a child to a young woman, and that was Maisie Williams as Arya Stark in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that's a good number 1 choice.
I was torn because I wanted one actress from Game of Thrones, and when it comes to actresses on that show, I could have had so many different honorable mentions, from Gwendolyn Christie, Lena Headey, Rose Leslie, I'm blank. Sophie Turner, Michelle Fairley, Amelia Clark. It just, that show is littered with incredible female performances and actresses. But the reason I went with Maisie Williams was because I feel like so often when shows have to pick a child star, they have to bank on the fact that they're going to be good when they're older.
Yeah.
Because there's some shows, and it's more so in the comedy realm, sometimes when they do family stuff, like I didn't watch a lot of the later seasons of Modern Family, but like I felt like I haven't seen those kids do much else besides that show. Don't
Yeah,
want to say that they're bad, but I like I I don't want to say that they're bad, that I don't want to be mean, because I'm never gonna know what it's like to grow up in that, but like she was so young. Like, she is, how old is she? Let's see, because the show started in 2011, and she is only 23, And so let's see, 9 years ago. So yeah, she was like what, like 10? Like she like
Baby.
yeah, she was a child, a literal child, and then was on it for 8 years, grows up to be in her like lower 20s, and I just think that she did an incredible job, made that character usually always a fan favorite, not only because of like her story being fun, but like she was fun to watch in that. She could be funny, she could be thrilling, she could do some of the action stuff. It just, she felt so believable in that role. And I think, just like I said, the mere fact that was a child, like we'll just say around like age like 9, 10, all the way till like lower 20s, that's like it could have easily went downhill at some point, but it totally didn't. She just got better, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, that is tough to be so young and to grow up in a very particular way. But yeah, it was like every season she delivered, very much so.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because it wasn't like she was just a side character or a supporting role. Like obviously it's an ensemble piece, but she was a lead. There was times where we were just following her story, like she was the only one in this region, like she would go over here, and then she played off really well with like the actor who played the Hound, and played well off of almost everyone she worked with. I just think that's a lot, because I think other actresses could have been put in that spot and maybe not been able to handle it as the years went on.
Yeah, and I would also say too, when a role is that young and you have someone so young in that role, sometimes it could like come off like hokey almost. Like I feel like her relationship with the Hound could have very much been like little scrappy kid and like the big tough guy, and it
Yeah,
wasn't. It was never like hokey. It was never like, yeah, she wasn't that good in this scene, but she's a kid, like leave her be. Like it
yeah.
was just always like on top.
And she had to do some dark shit.
Yeah.
Some really
Yeah.
fucked up dark shit. And I hope that's not gonna haunt her later in life, but like I think she just pulled it off incredibly. And so yeah, that is my number one for TV actress performances. Jess, do you want to jump into your movies?
Yes. Again, so many. So it was very hard to choose the five. But again, like these are the five that like really like stuck with me, impacted me, like got me thinking. So let's just get into it. My number five is a tie, kind of cheated, but I think I'm safe. Number five is the tie between Toni Collette in Hereditary and Florence Pugh in Midsommar. I think it's fine because they were both directed by Ari Aster. So like, let's just say we're counting it as one performance.
I'll allow it.
Thank you.
On
I
the
noticed.
super prestigious ranking on our podcast.
Oh yeah, whoops. But yeah, both women are just giving you everything in these two very horrific movies. Both movies just really like sucker punch you and stick with you, and like are a different level of horror than like what we're used to. So it's really exciting that both movies did well, because it's not like your typical mainstream horror. But both performances literally have them doing everything, like every range of emotion possible, sometimes within a few pieces of dialogue. um they're like 1 minute like gratified and happy and elated, and then the next they're like freaking out and like breaking down, and then the next they're like, trying to like keep it together, and then they're going insane. Like both have to do so much in such a little time, but they both do it in a way that is like incredible, totally believable, and both performances are ones that you can like put yourself in and really relate to them, even though they are going through such a broad range of things. Like you still like feel it, and you feel every moment they go through. um yeah, there's the characters themselves are different from each other, and the movies are somewhat different. Like I said, there is a through line of Ari Aster like being the one that directed them, and it's just interesting how he has written for women so far that they are really, really like going through it, and complex like isn't even like the best way to describe it. Like it is a whole nother level of emotions. Number 4 is Jessica Chastain in Zero Dark 30. This is actually the only actress on my list that was nominated for any sort of prestigious award for these performances. But she ultimately lost the Best Actress nomination to J-Law in Silver Linings Playbook, a performance that I would say has not aged super amazingly, but I'm anyway. Number 3. Anyway, number 3, Amy Adams in Arrival. Arrival is beautiful, brilliant. It should be respected more. That's my hot take. Her performance is incredible because she's playing a linguist who is tasked with being able to communicate with aliens that just landed on our planet. And she does it in such a believable way, which is really interesting. Like there are many scenes in which she's literally playing opposite a fake creature. But you get so invested in what is happening, like what this back and forth between her and an alien is. So there's no sort of moment where it feels like anything less than incredible and realistic in this like beautiful sci-fi movie. And I just feel like that role really does call for a lot for her. She's going through trying to talk to aliens and like personal challenges and like a weird time travel sort of element, and like Amy Adams meets like every single moment in that movie and makes it believable. And yeah, it boggles my mind that she has not gotten an Oscar yet, because I think she is one of like the best actresses we currently have, and I feel like she's just constantly undervalued. And what's weird too is that year she wasn't even nominated, and Emma Stone for La La Land won, which is like, which one was a little more challenging? Anyway, there's another performance. There's another movie. I don't think aged well. Anyway, moving on. Number 2 is Charlize Theron in Mad Max Fury Road as Furiosa. You guys can go back and listen to our top 10 favorite movies, and I describe a lot of the reasons why I love that movie in there, and she just delivers in every single moment in that movie. And then my number 1 pick is Lupita Nyong'o in Us. I love Us. I think it's a great movie. But what I think she does that no one else did really at all this decade is she's playing 2 different roles in a very different way. Sometimes within the same scene. She's playing both the protagonist and the antagonist. And her 2 different performances are so believable that while you're watching it, sometimes it's easy to forget that they're being played by the same person, because everything down to the way they speak, the way they carry themselves, their emotional ranges are like so different, and she just really puts herself fully in both. And I just feel like that is incredible and really difficult to do in one character, let alone 2 at the same exact time. Playing off each other too. There are scenes where she's the only actress in it and she's playing 2 different characters, and it's not hokey at all. It's like you fully are invested in like what's happening. I think it's an amazing performance. As much as I really, really like the movie, I don't know if it would have had as much of an impact had it been anyone else in that role. And just like Elisabeth Moss, I feel like she is the only one that could play that role. And to me, like, if you can't see anyone else as that character, that means like they have done the best they can do, because you're not even thinking about the other alternatives. So favorite actress performance in a movie, Lupita Nyong'o in Us.
So surprisingly, we have 3 that match.
Oh my goodness.
At first, I knew we'd have like 1, maybe 2, but then the one was the third. I was like, God damn. So I'll say my first 2, which don't match. My number 5. The reason why I didn't want to comment much because I'm like, I'm going to talk about like 3 of these in a minute. My number 5 is Phyllis Smith voicing Sadness in Inside Out.
Oh, that's a really good choice.
I have really only seen that movie fully through like a couple times just because like it gets me. And I think everyone knows her as Phyllis from The Office, but like this was like a role that like she was just like perfect for, and I think could have like very easily been like an afterthought if someone else did that voice. I think it really came through to where you were super sympathetic for her. It was like a really brilliantly casted movie with like Amy Poehler as Joy and Lewis Black as Anger and like things like that, but like Phyllis Smith as Sadness just gave me the feels. And so I knew I wanted to put at least one vocal performance on the list, and that's the one that stuck out to me most in the 2010s. My number 4 is Margot Robbie in I, Tonya.
I have her as an honorable mention. That performance is everything.
Yeah, and like the fact that she did a lot of the skating herself. Obviously, there's certain tricks that she does that like very few people in the world can do, much less make an actress try to do it. But like this movie, I think could have been kind of an afterthought with the fact that like it's just a biopic of Tanya Harding. Like obviously it's a controversial and weird story, but I don't think anyone thought that like, oh, this could be like a real killer like Oscar worthy performance for an actress. And yeah, Margot Robbie showed you, and it was a low budget movie, and like Allison Janney gets a lot of credit for her role in that movie, but honestly it's like, why would anyone talk about anyone else in that movie but but Margot Robbie? I think she played that so well, so sympathetic, but also like made you laugh. Incredible. My number 3 was Charlize Theron and Mad Max Fury Road.
Nice.
We've talked about it before. I think she is not only going to be one of the most memorable characters and performances of this decade, but I think decades from now, when they start to do like new, like maybe top 100 heroes or like top 100 like favorite characters, things like that, like she's going to be synonymous with that. Sort of like Sigourney Weaver for the Alien movies, or Linda Hamilton for the Terminator movies. I think like Charlize Theron, everyone's going to remember that performance from Fury Road. I know that there's talks of like, are they someday going to do another one? I don't know. If they don't, I think I'll still be happy because she did that role really well. But yeah, so my next one, my number 2 is Lupita Nyong'o in Us. I don't know why she wasn't nominated for things, because like you said, she played 2 different roles. She played the hero and the villain, and there's lots of times where like that gimmick is kind of becomes goofy when it's the same person playing 2 people. But she did it so well. She like just really, God, her voice as the villain is just so freaky. The different hair and just I don't know. It's hard to really go into unless you've seen the movie, and I don't want to necessarily like spoil anything, but it's something that I saw it, it came out February of 2019, and the whole year I was like, well, it's got to be hard to top that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it really
Yes.
is for that year. And then finally, my number one was Amy Adams in Arrival.
Yes.
I was livid that she didn't win actress.
It wasn't even nominated.
Wasn't even nominated. It was like the
And
same
Emma
thing.
Stone in La La Land. I'm sorry,
It
but
was
like,
just like when Leo didn't get nominated for Django Unchained. Like, I was
yes.
just so baffled by that, because not only should she at least been nominated, I thought it was like a shoo-in that she'd win. Now I think she's become the new, everyone was like, when's Leo gonna get his Oscar? It's like, when is Amy gonna get her Oscar?
Yeah, like
uh,
truly, like what more does she need to do for you people?
like that like you said, most of the movies she's interacting with, like, probably just like a green screen or like nothing real. And she brings so much emotion to it. And I don't know, it's just so good. um and honestly, I've only seen the movie fully through once in theaters. Like, I bought it because I knew I'd want to see it again. But it's just such a powerful performance. It stuck with me ever since that movie came out, and I think she should have very easily have swept all the award shows with that role. Because yeah, I think it was extremely, extremely underrated.
Absolutely. I actually watched it recently. Some of these movies I hadn't seen in a while, and so I was trying to watch like some of these shows or movies, just to kind of go back and see these performances. And I watched Arrival for the first time since it came out, and it not only held up, but like felt better, like seeing it again. And I just watching it thought like this was one of the best movies that year, and for it to be like so forgotten is terrible. It's one of the best sci-fi movies ever done.
Yeah,
um
I definitely agree. I think, and someone that I think is a very underrated director is that director Denis Villeneuve.
yeah, absolutely.
He did Prisoners, which was one of my favorite of the decade. Came out in like 2011, 2012. He did Sicario. He did Arrival. He
Blade
then
Runner, the new Blade Runner he
Blade Runner
did.
2049, and now he's working on the Dune movies. Uh, yeah, he's just a great director. He always gets great performances, like from Amy Adams and uh, Emily Blunt in Sicario, Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal in Prisoners. Like, he just always gets great performances, and also gets these great casts in these movies, and directs it well. He usually has like Roger Deakins do cinematography for at least a couple of them, if not all of them. I just I agree. I think Arrival is very underrated. I want to rewatch it. It's probably something that I'm going to rewatch during this time. It's just one of those movies, like, you got to be in the right mood.
Yes.
If you haven't seen Arrival, it's not like super sad or anything. It's not going to like rock your world, but I think it's not like, the way I could best describe it, I don't know how some of you are with your home viewing. I've noticed that there are some movies that I can have the lights on, I can maybe have my phone out, and I'll still enjoy it. But there's some movies it's like, no, you need the lights off and you need to be paying attention. And I
Yes.
feel like this is one of those, because it's like an experience that you shouldn't take lightly, especially to see something like Amy Adams' performance. But yeah, I found it funny that for movies we had three similarities.
Yeah, and like right by each other too. That's
Yeah,
really funny.
pretty much just like switched our top threes around a little.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is funny. We very rarely cross over in our list, so that is funny that we agreed on the stellar performances of the year.
Yeah, like looking over, I tried to look up a bunch of lists of like best performances, and I'd seen some that I'd be like, yeah. But like you said, a lot of these, I don't think they were necessarily awarded, because we've done just episodes on award shows. But to me, there are movies that stick with you, and they aren't always necessarily ones that are nominated for awards.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
you think about, I mainly bring this up because I was just talking to my parents. They rented this the other night. They saw King's Speech from 2010. That won Best Picture. What do I think about from 2010? I think about Inception. I think about Social Network. I think about Toy Story 3. I think about Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Right.
Like, I think of those 4 awesome movies and don't think of The King's Speech, and haven't seen it because I feel like the trailer, I get it, you know. There are tons of movies that and performances that I think they get nominated, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to stick with you. Like, okay, this last year, who was nominated for like Best Actress? It was Renee Zellweger for Judy,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah, and I did eventually see that, and she is really amazing.
Yeah.
But I couldn't tell you who else. Oh,
Yeah.
well, Lupita wasn't. Like, that's the thing. Like,
Yeah, that's the
that's who I
thing.
would have rooted for. And like, I'm sorry, Renee was amazing as Judy, yes, but like, she wasn't doing what Lupita could do. Like,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. But that's what comes down to a lot of the award show problems is like they go based on like, oh, well, they like this. I don't think they really considered us for any awards.
And the same with Midsommar with Florence Pugh. Like, she was so much better in that, and had to do more with that than she did in Little Women. It's just, horrors are not taken seriously. Get Out winning Best Screenplay, huge deal. I mean, like, that is a huge deal for the Oscars. But yeah, it's just, it goes to show you that like the awards, like, they don't matter. Like like you were saying, Charlize Theron's character in Mad Max Furiosa is going to go down as one of the best, like, hero, not even necessarily just female, best like actions characters, best like you said, Ripley and Aliens like level. But
Yeah.
she wasn't nominated, she wasn't even considered, I'm sure, but it's like one of the top performances of the decade. So it's just, I don't know, I feel like time is the best indicator of like how truly good a performance is, not accolades at that year. Like, it's just, like I said, I'm sorry, we all love J-Law back in the day, but like, if you rewatch Silver Linings Playbook, like,
I
the
feel like you got
thing,
some J-Law hate happening.
I don't, because she is an honorable mention in one of her performances, but I am saying if you go back and watch Silver Linings Playbook, the acting she gives is very big, very loud, and very much something you do your freshman year in acting 101. Just saying. Just saying. Jessica Chastain in Zero Dark 30, so different.
I
But
mean,
anyway.
but to be fair, I'll say one thing for J-Law. She was like 22 at that time. She was not.
Yeah.
So
And
she was not like that was like one of her first. Let's see, I think that was one of her first movies.
I would say she's much better in Winter's Bone than she is in Silver Linings. And
So
I'm not saying it's like anything against her abilities. I'm just
yeah.
saying like that character, that direction, I just find it to be like I don't know, anyone can kind of yell. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
anyone can freak out in a diner. Like,
I haven't seen that movie in years, and I'm not like necessarily disagreeing with you. I'm throwing out the fact that, you know, it we did she was younger and we did like it at the time, but that's what's always interesting is the fact that some movies and some roles, some performances, you see them one way when you watch them the first time, whether it's in theater or on TV, and then you see it later and it may not stick with you. Whereas others, like I said, I only saw Arrival once, but I've thought about her performance many times since then, and however many people I like was looking through lists that they performed in the 2010s, and I'm like, oh yeah, that came out.
yes, exactly. Yes. So yeah, it's just, I feel like I said, time is like probably one of the best indicators of like what makes a performance amazing. Like being able to look back and say like, yeah, that's still like, I still think about that. Or like, oh, that I mean, has anyone thought about La La Land since the Oscars? Like, just saying. That's why
I
I'm
still
so
haven't seen
happy.
it, and
Yeah,
it's not on the top of my
you
list.
don't have to, you know. And I would say like that's why, like, total sidebar, totally off track, but like I'm so happy that Parasite won Best Picture, because that is a movie that I definitely think is going to be one of those where it's like, we're going to think about it. Like, I still think about it. A lot of people are still talking about it and thinking about it. Posts like winning Best Picture. It's like, finally, there's a movie that's like, this is what we're going to be into in a few years as well. So anyway.
So yeah, those do you want to just read down your top 10 again real quick?
Sure. So my top 5 for TV was number 5, Regina King in Watchmen. Number 4, Olivia Colman in Broadchurch and The Crown. Number 3, Catherine O'Hara in Schitt's Creek. Number 2, Tandy Newton in Westworld. Number 1, Elisabeth Moss in The Handmaid's Tale. And then for movies, my 5 was Toni Collette in Hereditary and Florence Pugh in Midsommar. Number 4, Jessica Chastain in Zero Dark 30. Number 3, Amy Adams in Arrival. Number 2, Charlize Theron in Mad Max, Fury Road. And number 1 was Lupita Nyong'o in S.
Awesome. My number 5 for TV was Rachel Bloom in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. My number 5 was Rachel Bloom. Number 4 was Phoebe Waller-Bridge in Fleabag. Number 3 was Catherine O'Hara in Schitt's Creek. Number 2 was Julia Louis-Dreyfus in Veep. And then my number 1 was Maisie Williams in Game of Thrones. My number 5 for movies was Phyllis Smith voicing Sadness in Inside Out. Then it was Margot Robbie and I, Tonya. Charlize Theron and Mad Max Fury Road. Lupita Nyong'o in Us. And finally, Amy Adams in Arrival.
I have some honorable mentions as well.
Oh yeah, let's hear those honorable mentions.
So Margot Robbie in I, Tonya, Sandra Bullock in Gravity, Viola Davis in The Help, Alicia Vikander in Ex Machina, Lady Gaga in A Star Is Born, J-Law in The Hunger Games, which is an interesting choice for her performances. But if you go back and watch, those are like really great performances, actually. Lena Headey in Game of Thrones, Jessica Lange in American Horror Story, Nicole Kidman in Big Little Lies, and Tessa Thompson and Evan Rachel Wood in Westworld.
All right. So I did some honorable mentions. I didn't do a lot. Some of them I already mentioned. That 3 off the bat that I considered for Game of Thrones was Rose Leslie. She played Ygritte in Game of Thrones. You know nothing, Jon Snow. Sophie Turner from Game of Thrones, Gwendolyn Christie from Game of Thrones, Scarlett Johansson voicing the operating system in Her.
Oh, okay.
I think she did really great in that. I'm blanking on the other one I was just about to say. I agreed. You said Alicia Vikander in Ex Machina. Oof, that's a movie that's another one, like, that's an experience. You need to pay attention for that one.
Yes.
You need the lights off to get like the full effect. Yeah, I think those are some of the main ones off the top of my head. Oh, I want to throw a shout out to Daisy Ridley as Rey in the Star Wars movies. I thought she was great in Force Awakens and Last Jedi. Not that she wasn't in The Rise of Skywalker, but that's a discussion for another podcast. But yeah, I think she was great in those. I loved seeing her in that lead role. Yeah, there's just too many. There's too many. I mean, obviously, it's that was the difficult part. It's 10 years of performances. We could have honestly, it's like we could have made like 6 episodes just on actresses, from like leading TV, supporting TV, leading film, supporting film, maybe some comedy, some drama. It's just there's so much. But so we had to whittle it down, and I still think it's funny that like we had total 4 matches in our 10's.
Yeah.
4 matches, David. So Jess, we're going to be next episode wrapping up our top 10s of the 10 series with actor performances in the 10s. Excited for that?
I am, yeah. This discussion has gotten me thinking about some other like male performances that are not currently on my list, so I'm gonna have to do some reshuffling. But yeah, it's been fun looking back at this decade. I am happy we're gonna be wrapping it up, and we've said like what we wanted to say about it. And then yeah, we'll finish it off with actors and go from there.
Absolutely. But yeah, if you guys do have any in the future you want to see us do, whether it's top 10s of the 10s or just top 10s in general, please let us know. Because then once this is over, we're going to jump back into some other topics that aren't necessarily ranking, because we've been doing lots of rankings with these top 10 series. So please let us know. Leave a comment on YouTube or a review on Apple Podcasts, or email us entertainmentbuffet@gmail.com. And Jess, where can they find you on the social medias?
I am at Jess Kwazz, JessKwazz, on Twitter and Instagram.
I am at the pros, TheProze on Twitter. I'm at Brandon Prosek on Instagram. And yeah, please follow Entertainment Buffet on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all the things. We're going to be trying to get you some more video podcasts if we can. If not, there may be some new audio and or video content dropping soon. We can dish on that later. But yeah, so thank you guys for listening, and we would love to hear what are some top 10 performances from the 10s that we missed.
Yeah, let us know, because there were a lot. I'm sure there's some I didn't even think about, because there's so many.
Absolutely.